Hello everyone and welcome to another WarLock Tiles build. This is like a mini build, just sort of, I had an idea and I think you could use this in a bigger dungeon or something like that. But I just wanted to show it off because I think it's a pretty cool use for the tables from the dungeon dressing set. So what do we have here? Well, we have a Tiefling and Lord Tavarin here, and they are going to be trying to get through this slightly puzzled entrance and get up the staircase. Now, where that staircase leads to, that's not for this adventure or for this build. This is just to get this sort of puzzly aspect here sort of involved. But you could use this as maybe an access to a wizard's tower, or maybe a secretive back entrance to a keep or castle that you'd have to have stormed. And, you know, that wouldn't end well, but maybe there was this way in if you knew how. Well, we're going to have our heroes come in the front door and find there's not too much for them to do. You can come along here, there's sort of the grimy walls, you know, potentially if this is the back entrance to a keep or castle, maybe you've had to have boated into here and this is where you get off the boat. For this case though, I've just put the walls on. You're coming along and there seems to be wooden floor. Now, there's no distracting and hiding this from the players. There are two central areas using the curved sets that are clearly going to do something. So, you know, I'm not trying to hide that from players, but it's going to be something they're going to have to work with. Anyway, there's only one way they can do. They can't go through the walls here, so they're going to have to come into this room, and that's where I have used one of these tables from the dungeon dressing set, and I've just flipped it upside down. To me, that looks like sort of a mechanism that you would push or pull and rotate to spin something. And that's how I came up with this idea. So they are going to be pushing that around, and you're hearing the clunk, clunk, cheek of some mechanical stuff, chains being pulled, and all of a sudden, I mean, you're not seeing it unless one of you is stood outside, but you'd have to have been strong to push that on your own. This is slowly rotating. And then, if they were to step back outside of that door, they can now see. Well, they can't quite see round because there is this central curved area. And I'm not going to lie, that's the hardest part of the build because I had just 2 tiles in before, and it's meant this build is a little bit fragile because it doesn't have the connections, because when you've got the curved wall pieces, they don't necessarily have the connections on the outside. So I think if I was to rebuild this, I'd use just straight walls for the solidness, but the curved walls look cool. So, you know, they're going to come through here, and we've found another one. Now, again, there's no real deception here. They're going to turn it. Now, they're going to realise, and you're not going to tell them how far. So unless one of their party is stood out there, until they venture out that door, they're not going to know how much you've rotated it. So, you know, wait for them to come back out the room and have a look and go, okay, we need to rotate that a bit more. You could say, you know, it only rotates one way, so that's why they couldn't have just pushed it one way round the other. And if they do push it a little bit more, then they will be able to then, and you just have to sort of every now and again poke stuff down. Once they've done that, they'll hear the clink of things locking into place again. They can come out and they can see that they can get into this area. But there's nothing here. Well, if they rotate them in the correct orientation, which is basically putting one box there and then boxing off this other small section. So basically having a mirrored sections here. If they pull that off, then they hear a little bit more and a secret door begins to spin. It's that simple. They have got the mechanisms in the right place. They've used the mechanisms to rotate them, to get across, to rotate them. then they're thinking there might be a bit more to it, so they've played around a bit more, and then they have found this unlocked door. They come into here, and that is where this mini build ends. Now, I've used many different endings on builds of the month. Normally, it's, you know, this is that adventure over. This is where the adventure could begin. You can take that staircase. Where do players go next? Could it be that castle? Could it be that tower? Could it be, you know, maybe just the bank, you know, this sort of a vault of a bank? You've managed to get through this system, and now you're there to actually claim the money once you've climbed maybe down into the vault rather than up. It's just a little bit different, and I just basically I dropped one of these. It landed on another build when I had the circular floor. It landed on it, and I thought, well, that's very similar, isn't it? Now, if you're just rotating that, maybe you're rotating the platform, and I think there's one thing that isn't really available with WarLock Tiles / accessories, and that is levers and switches and things like that, which, you know, that's great for puzzles and pinging things open and doors not opening until a lever's been pulled. Well, just having the table upside down and rotating it, that, you know, it's like one of those things that you're pushing round to open a, you know, something. It's just an interesting use, and I thought, well, it's quite a nice design. In this, I have used the Dungeon Tiles 1 set for the square walls. I have just gone over the top and used the angles and the curves. I've even then used just the inner walls from the Town and Village set just to give a bit of visual variety. Then I've used the curves again in the middle here. They're double-sided, so it doesn't matter that they're from one or the other. Of course, dungeon dressing for this. And I just gave the edge of the map some points, because why not? I have the tiles. Obviously, you could have these square walls and basically make this with, apart from this, you'd need curves, but you could use curves and just the original dungeon tiles set. You wouldn't need the angles. They're not adding anything other than visual flair here. So anyway, hope you've enjoyed. Hope you check out the actual builds of the month. They're a bit longer, have a bit more story to them, and hopefully give you other ideas. And until next month or next episode, have a great month gaming.